Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be our first GPU mining update video for 2024. It's going to be just a quick little overview of the entire market. Going to look at profitability, to look at different projects, look at some hardware news coming out, which we got those new 4000 series cards coming out, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Look at price trends and just different trends that are going on, right? That's been a key part of the channel, especially with GPU mining, is kind of staying ahead of the game, right? That's definitely been a game changer for us, and that's what we're going to continue to do here, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So just a quick overall look at the mining profitability, right? This is on a 3070. This is on hashrate.io. This is at a 12-cent kilowatt hour. Things are looking pretty good, right? They are continuing to be profitable. Things have been profitable for quite a while. There's been times, again, where it's better than others, but right now it's looking pretty good, right? There's been quite a few coins that have been pumping. We're continuing this trend with these new coins that are profitable for quite a while. Who knows if they last? AI Power Grid's been doing it for, it's been at least, what, a couple of weeks now. It's doing pretty good. So again, on a single 3070, revenue-wise, nearly a freaking dollar, 91 cents, right? Which is pretty good. Dual mining, Hyper and Carlson. Hyper had a nice little pump, so it's at 95 cents of revenue if you're dual mining. Hyper and Alephium, so even with Alephium's crazy difficulty increase, it's still 91 cents if you're dual mining there. You can add the ZIL also, actually, something you can triple mine easily. Chlor is profitable, 78 cents, guys, on a 3070. It's pretty insane. But things overall, again, you can go down the list. This is the beauty of what's going on right now, though, is that it's just continuing to be a lot of coins that are pretty somewhat profitable, right? And this is excellent, whether you like any of these coins or not. Again, it's spreading out the hash rate. It's giving everything, you know, equal terms to like benefit from it, right? So it's just depending on where you're at, depending on where you want to be at. If you see something in one of these coins, you can go into it more, but this is one thing that we were kind of nervous about, but overall things are definitely looking better. And again, I want to harp on, like we've been harping all of last year, the best time to be mining is now, guys. While profits aren't so crazy, while the yield is good, because what's going to happen once the bull market really starts? People are going to jump on it. You're going to have these normies jumping on it. You're going to have like people jumping on nice hash, going up, and then what happens? Yes, the profitability is going to go up, but the yield is going to go down because so many more people are going to jump on. The best time to be mining was all of last year, and then now, right before these huge run-ups. You want to accrue that bag. You want to get it right now while the yield is good. I'm still a firm believer that during these times, we're going to look back at it and it's going to be the best time to mine. Why? Because of the yield on these coins is going to be way better than what it's going to be in the future, right? So factor that in. That's something I'm going to harp on every video, is just get in the game, guys. If it's at a point where your electric rate is kind of high, once you get to that break-even point, or even fairly close to it, you're going to want to consider jumping in, just because, again, the yield is going to be the best right now, right? It's not the best idea to chase that profitability or start chasing it once everything goes up, right? The best example right now is like Alephium. It's been on a crazy pump. This thing is over freaking $2. It's insane, especially considering the fact that just as recently as like in October, we were at 12-13 cents. Okay, look at this long drawn out boring period. Okay, this whole time from March on, we've been in the teens. Okay, that was the time to mine. That was the time to buy. That was the time to accrue. Okay, it's totally up to you, not financial advice. But right now isn't the time to start FOMOing in, right? Whether you're buying it or mining it, this is not the time. But two mindsets here, right? Also something we said with Caspa about a year ago. Okay, we said similar things like, oh, it's on a pump. Is it the best time? Maybe it'll retrace. Kind of didn't, right? And it's potential that it happens here because, again, out of all the newer GPU mineable coins, tech-wise, as far as being a layer 1, this has been the promising from the get-go, right? We had been talking about this last year. Our concern last year, though, was it was kind of missing the pumpamentals, right? We had a nice little pump at the beginning of 2023 in that March-April period where all the GPU mineable coins had a significant pump. Alephium didn't have that great of a pump, right? And that was what was kind of like a little bit on the concerning side. It's like, okay, they have the tech, they have the team, they're putting out there, they're building on there, but will they have those fundamentals? Well, they definitely proved they do now, because now out of all of the GPU mineable coins, best gain so far, right? It actually cracked the top 300 guys. Number 293. Okay, went well beyond the $100 million market cap. It's at $132 million, guys. And it's insane that it happened within a matter of months. Something to think about. Okay, another thing we had mentioned with Caspa is Caspa had that insane run during a time where everything else was like on a fire sale. And that's something I harped in that video I did well over a year ago talking about that. Okay, you can even go back here till the beginning of November of 22. Okay, or you can go back a little bit before then, actually, when Caspa was 0.0017. Okay, and throughout that time, it wasn't just like a one-day pump or a weekend pump. It just continually grew from there, even during the FTX fiasco. That, to me, and I even mentioned it back then, that should be like sending you signals like, hey, there's something here, you should be looking at that. When everything else was on a fire sale, it was going up. Okay, we can see here in early November, it was 0.0039. We keep going, 0.005. Now towards the end of November, 0.0072. Okay, 0.0089. Okay, and this is, again, this was those weeks of that FTX collapse, and it was still doing its thing. Okay, good example with Alephium, where right now they're doing good. A lot of the other coins are showing weakness, just like the rest of the alts in the market. Right, we look at one prominent one that pumped up recently with all the other ones was Nexa. You can see here the downtrend stands out quite significantly. Okay, it was just back around Thanksgiving time, it was at all the zeros at 1900. It's currently at 7, so nearly a third of what it was back then. Okay, and this is a pretty similar story with a lot of these other coins. Okay, so these are definitely things we want to pay attention to, trends we want to pay attention to, right? That's one of the big things I like to look at when we have all these big pumps or we have big dumps in the overall market, is to see how these coins react. Okay, that's a big sign as to how they may do in the future, right? And right now, Alephium is showing extreme strength. So shout out to any of you guys who had been mining it or buying it, doing whatever, just accruing it, right? Huge shout out, because it's a nice little gain, and it's only getting more momentum. We'll see where it goes, right? But again, to me, we've been talking about it all of last year. It is the most promising coin out of the bunch, and this is the one that does have potential to really do something beyond like the Raven coins, right? To do something special, right? Will it be something like Caspa? Hard to really say, but we hope so, right? So something to take note of there. But again, like we mentioned, what happens when this happens with the price action? Everybody starts jumping into it, right? Again, this isn't the time you necessarily want to do that. We look at the hash rate. Okay, if we look at where it's currently at, 221 terahash, right? We go back down to that October area, 59 terahash. Okay, nearly 4 times it's gone up. So your yield is gone. It's been a quarter of what it was. Okay, so is that necessarily the best time? If this is the only coin you're bullish on and the only coin you want to accrue, then it's always going to be the best time to get it, right? Because at the end of the day, in reality, these are going to be much lower than what they're going to be in the bull market, right? So that's one way to look at it as well. Like, for example, if I had got my allotment of the coins I wanted to get, like I met my goal, like I met my goal with Ironfish, I met my goal with Radium, met my goal with Nexa, and this was next on the list, then it's just going to be next on the list, right? But then at that point, because of how high the price has gone up, this is something I would definitely be mining versus buying, right? But me being a hybrid person, kind of doing a little bit of both, this, even though Alephium is definitely one of the coins I need to accrue, this is not the time for me to accrue it. Like, even if it does just continue up, even if it goes up to $3, $4, at this point, I missed the boat. And that's fine. You're not going to catch all of them. Okay, but you want to narrow down and catch the ones that you do, or the ones that benefit you the most. Like, for example, sometimes I mine certain coins just because of the hardware I have is maximized for that. Like, for example, Radiant. Radiant, and this isn't necessarily one of the ones I'm most bullish on, but because of the hardware I have, it benefits me the most to mine it. For example, my little FPGAs, especially that little mult miner, does very well on Radiant. It's been doing well since the entire time that bitstream came out, right? So for me, that's a big reason why I am mining Radiant and why that is going to be on my list, right? But the one I'm definitely eyeing right now, because of price and because of difficulty, is Nexa. Nexa is another one that's on my list, and the one that I don't have a whole lot of. So this is one that even at this current price, it's almost a DCA price for me, right? On top of attempting to try to mine for it, again, it's at all the zeros and 7, or again, just that freaking Thanksgiving time, it was almost 3x of what it was, right? It's not at the lows of what it was either, though, right? But it's not too far off. It's about double what it was, right? But in comparison to like Alephium, for example, definitely the better bet, right? Especially as far as mining or buying. These are the times you want to go because, again, look at the hash rate. Okay, with Alephium, we saw how crazy that run-up was. Now we look here, the current hash rate is at 7 terahash. The last time we were this low was a year ago. We have to go all the way back to January 2023 to find a hash rate that low. Okay, so these are the times you want to be mining some of these coins if they're on your list. Okay, and everybody has different strategies. Some people have lists, some people have accrual goals. Like that's something we started last year. We set up these accrual goals. I'm going to try to meet them. Right, so for me, this is one because of where the hash rate is, where the yield is going to be at, and where the price action is. This is one I'm going to be going into now, right? Ideally, perfect world, I wanted to finish my iron fish bag just because, again, I was so close to finishing it. I had my goal of reaching 1,000 iron. I'm at a little over 900 right now. But realistically, yield-wise, where the price action is just going to make more sense for me to pivot and start focusing on Nexa, right? It's hard for me too because I don't want to be jumping back and forth like that. It was definitely a goal for this year is to not be doing this coin hopping crap. And generally, I don't like to do it. And generally, I haven't done it in the past, right? But right now, I have to see what makes the most sense. And currently, this is what makes the most sense for me because this is one I want to get on, right? Radiant, I'm going to continue to accrue just again because of that mult miner. That's what's on it. That's where it works best. And that's where it's going to continue. And again, that's another one because of the price action hasn't been so hot. The yield has been good. Yield has been excellent, actually. Okay, it's currently at 43 terahash. We can see during that April pump, it freaking went up to 227, right? So it's not all-time lows. It's not like where Nexa was, but we have to go all the way back to pretty much back in the day, right, to get to like these type of numbers. Although it was super low back in March, right? But again, yield-wise, if this is one you want to accrue, and realistically, if you're into Radiant at all, you want to try to accrue some, again, prior to the halving. They do have a halving coming up in April. That is going to be a big factor. So if this is one that's on your list, you may want to consider those things, right? And again, that's another reason I know a lot of people, and that's the reason that Alephium was kind of on my rush list, just because it's probably most likely they're going to be next on the list for an ASIC, right? To me, the top two contenders is going to be Alephium and Radiant. Realistically, out of the two, it'd be Alephium, right? Radiant, also eventually, just because of the algorithm. But, I mean, the community, they're just kind of like whatever about it, right? So it's hard to tell. We'll see what happens there. But to me, those are the two most likely. But again, I personally would be in a somewhat of a rush, right? Right now, I'm still on pace to get the amount that I wanted. My goal is for 1 million prior to the halving, and I'm still on pace to get it, right? So I'll be happy if I reach that goal. Things look kind of squirrely, then maybe I'll try to jump on a little bit more aggressively, but that is the overall goal for that, right? So we'll see how it goes there. Another coin that's on the list, another coin we'll look at is Dynex. Dynex did recently go up a bit. Currently, it's not near those highs we had not too long ago, where it was about $1.30. It's been kind of on a downtrend, right? So again, for those types of things, if it's one you're into, if it's one you want to accrue, which it is on my list, not necessarily on the rush list, it's kind of like in that middle list. It's one that if it's beneficial for me to mine at the time, then I'll jump on it, right? I'm gonna just keep our eyes on it. And it's one that most likely will be more appealing, like as soon as these more efficient algorithms leave, This is going to be one that remains, right? Because let's say Radiant does go ASIC, Alephium goes ASIC. Those are two of the low power options that may leave us. And this may be one of the few that's left coming towards like the end of this year, right? We'll see how things go. We'll see what happens. Another one I tend to follow is Ironfish. And like I mentioned, this is one I mine with the little Osprey, the Osprey that's back here. It's doing pretty good, right? But because of the price action has been excellent. Actually, it's at $2.46. It was like at 50, between 50 to 60 cents for quite a long while, right? It's currently at a good amount higher, and that's why the hash rate isn't crazy high, but it's definitely quite a bit higher than what it was even just a month ago, right? The yield is down. I was making about 4 iron a day. Now it's down to about 2 with that same amount of hash rate. So it's not as super appealing, but again, I wanted to finish that bag, but I may not. I may just try to jump on some of these other coins. Because specifically what I can do with this Osprey is I can go on unmineable and mine iron, but be able to earn like Nexa, for example. And that might be the play for me right now, specifically with the Osprey, right? Some of the other coins that had that big pump and have retraced quite a bit. I mean, it's not unexpected. Okay, they went up to a drastic amount, especially XNA. This had one of the crazier pumps. If we go back on the big time frame, it was an insane run up. So even though, yes, it's gone down and it's half of what it was not too long ago, it's still insanely high from what it was just even back in November, right? This is one of those coins that had this crazy pump. So did Chlor, so did a few others, and they're doing the same thing, right? So will they continue? Most likely. Well, it's possible they retrace more. Potentially also just consider that run up, guys. We had such a big run up. It shouldn't be a shocker, even if it does continue to go down, right? Again, you want to look at the yield. You want to look at the hash rate, the difficulty. And if it's one that's on your list, that might be the time to go for it, right? Because as these are going down, what always tends to happen, right? People always go for profitability, so these things go down even further, right? And yield can get even better. Okay, so these are the types of things we want to look for. Again, I'm not necessarily doing it on like a daily basis or even like a weekly basis, right? My frequency would ideally be a few months at a time, right? Maybe switch month to month, but even then, I'd rather just more set it and forget it. Especially now because I'm more dead set on which ones are next on the priority list for accrual, right? So just different things to consider there. Another one we've been talking about is Ethereum, or better known, not better known, but now known as Hypera. And it's been on a nice little run, right? Just literally last week, it was at 5 cents. It's currently at 16 cents. And it's continuing. It's getting popular. We'll see if it continues. Still a tiny market cap, though, right? They don't have it listed on here. ZachX has it listed. Still a tiny market cap. Still has a ton of room to grow. So this is one that I'm going to hang on to until it reaches that like market cap ranking of, say, the like 500 to 700 range, like in the range where like Radiant and such is at, and then from there decide what I'm going to do with it, right? Because then at that point, that's kind of been the turning point, right? Once it gets to that point, are there other coins that I have more faith in that'll do better? Potentially, right? If it does make it to that point, I may swap it to something else with those profits, right? I may hang on to it, may decide not to, might just hang on to it. But realistically, if it's advantageous for me to do that, like for example, if Hypera does go up to like Radiant's market cap, it does do like a 15x from here and goes to Radiant's market cap, then from there, I may use that money to buy into a coin I do want to accrue, right? Let's say that Nexa is still in the slump and is still in that range, then that would 100% be the play for me. And that would be the way to accrue the Nexa, right? Either Nexa or let's say Alephium goes back down to like $1, 80 cents, something like that, then maybe go in there. Right, just different things, and those are the kinds of things I kind of look at, right? So that's been the play for me with these small market cap coins, is ride it until it gets to that point, and then at that point decide what I want to do with it, right? Because at that point, that's kind of like a turning point almost. Like, am I super bullish? Do I think it's gonna go beyond Raven? Do I think it's gonna go in the top 100? Things of that sort, and those are the coins that I want to try to pivot into more. That's definitely a goal, to not have so many coins. I want to just start narrowing it down and going harder into those coins and trying to meet those goals, right? I have set goals for Nexa, for Alephium, and all these others, right? Some of these others I'm fairly close to, but these others I definitely need to accrue this year, right? And those are definitely on the list, and that's just another potential way. And I'm going to keep my eyes out for any others that I see potential in, especially now, but it's borderline hard because there's freaking so many. Like, I have not looked into any of these like Ghost Rider coins, or there's just so many, which is a good problem to have though. Sounds like I'm complaining, but this is definitely what we want to see, right? We want to see these options. We want to see all these things available. We want to see that hash rate spread out because there's just so many. Like, it's borderline ridiculous. And that are profitable. Not only is there that many, there's so many that are profitable, right? It's pretty insane that even coins that aren't very popular anymore, at least, like Raven Coin, Firo, they still are. They still have their, dedicated community. But as far as in terms of overall popularity, especially with these newer coins, they're definitely not there, right? The more legacy GPU mineable coins such as Ergo and Flux. Now, does that mean that, oh no, they're definitely not going to do anything? Those were the old things. No, I think they're still going to have their time, but not until the bull market, right? And that's when I will be more, not necessarily worried, but that's when I will be looking at them more, right? To mine during that time where it is going to be more profitable, right? Because currently, I just haven't had the best price action, right? Especially Flux. Flux is the one I've been saying it's kind of been not necessarily concerning, but it's like they should be building more hype, especially with all the news they've been having. But I think that's part of it. It's just been almost feels like very stagnant, right? Like proof of use fork. We've been talking about it for what feels like years now, and it's just now coming to fruition. We'll talk about it here towards the end, but it's definitely lagging in that department, especially in comparison to the price action of a lot of these other coins that are doing similar things, right? When we think of like, if we look at the top 100 coins, we look at like Akash, we look at Render, we look at a lot of those. There's definitely a lot more hype, a lot more momentum into those coins, even though Flux has been talking about it forever, right? So it's kind of a little weird. We'll see what happens though. They are going to be at CES. Hopefully we get some news there. We'll see what happens, right? So now let's pivot to talking about hardware, and this is something where I have been excited. So we do have the next set of Nvidia 4000 series cards coming out, and it'll be the supers, right? We had talked about this in the previous video. We had mentioned it throughout the year that most likely when it did come out, it was going to be a fairly lazy upgrade. That's kind of what it was, right? They're nothing really groundbreaking because, again, a lot of Nvidia's focus is now going to be on that high-powered compute, right? Think of their AI cards, their Hopper series, their A100s, H100s, etc. That's where the money's at. That's where the focus is going to be at. It's not necessarily going to be here. Now, does that mean they're going to stop innovating? No, they're going to continue to do their thing. It's just not going to necessarily be a priority or the biggest thing for them for the year, right? All the money in manufacturing and dedication and engineering is all going to be on the AI cards, right? So here we go. Not official pricing. This is what's rumored. This is what's been going on. So the 4080 Super is the only one I've kind of seen variables with. Some places are listing it, or rumor mill saying that it's going to be $899. Some places are saying $999. $999 to me seems like the most likely scenario, which is still kind of interesting though, because it's still a price cut from the current 4080, right? Current 4080 when it debuted last year was $1,200, right? So now the 4080 Super, $999, the 4070 Ti Super, $799, the 70 Super, $599. Couple interesting things. One is the 4070, although there is going to be a newer version, right? The 4070 Super, the 4070 SKU is still supposed to remain, right? It is still supposed to be there. They're still supposed to both coexist, right? The 4070 Ti, the regular one, is supposed to be at end of life. Same with the 4080, right? So the question here is, will there be any price cuts for the previous gen cards? Potentially, but I don't think very aggressively, right? So we've pretty much known the existence of these cards since probably like late last summer, right? That's when the rumors were coming out, and especially these past like 3-4 months. So we did see some kind of deals on the 4070 Ti, the regular one, over like the Black Friday and Christmas time. I think the best sale was at GameStop actually. They had some of the MSI ones down like $669. Those sold out very quick. Okay, so realistically, for the two that are going to be end of life, meaning the regular 4080 and the 4070 Ti, I don't necessarily see crazy aggressive cuts unless they have to, right? To me, the most likely scenario is Nvidia is going to be Nvidia. They're going to do what they did last year where they debut these cards and it's going to be only a limited amount, right? It's going to be a very limited amount. It's going to sell out. It's going to be hard to get. And maybe they'll discount like the 4070 Ti, the regular one, instead of being $799, maybe it'll go to $729, maybe $699. And people see the value there, like, oh, okay, it's not that big of a difference. It's a little bit cheaper. Let me get that, right? So that may be the extent of it. They definitely have to go down because it's not going to make any sense for them to be the same price. But whether it's going to be like a 20-30% off kind of thing, realistically, I don't think so. Maybe 20%, hopefully, right? If the 4070 Super is $599, 4070 maybe goes down to $499, but maybe not, just because it's going to affect all the lower tier cards as well, and most of those probably won't drop a whole lot, right? So for example, like the 4060 Ti, the regular 4060, etc., right? So they are expensive, but it kind of is what it is. Am I looking at these? Actually, yes, right? So my biggest thing is I was kind of torn on where to go, right? I do want to add more GPUs. I was kind of iffy, like, oh, do I want to add a few more ASICs? Do I want to add more GPUs? I think after getting the KS3M, I'm pretty set on no more ASICs and just start trying to get GPUs. With the exception of potentially an Alephium ASIC in the future, right, in the next 6 months, whenever one comes out, if the price makes sense, right? If it's coming out at 50K, then hell to the no. But if there's like an Ice River, like, if it makes sense, right? It's got to make sense for us to do that. Otherwise, definitely would rather start adding GPUs, especially now because a lot of the prices are beginning to go up, right? And initially it was kind of torn, like, what do I want to get? Do I want to get 3000 series cards? Definitely the only thing I knew for sure, potentially some of the newer AMD cards, so like 6600, 6700, 6800s, 3000 series. And these, I was like, maybe 4090s. I did get a 4090. I did purchase one at the beginning of the year, back in like March. I bought an open box one for, it's like $1190 something. I did sell it a few months ago for more than what I had paid for it. Just because it kind of didn't make sense because of how cheap a lot of the ASICs were, right? Like when I priced it out, how much revenue I was bringing in for close to $2,000. When you compare it with ASICs where their price is currently at, it just doesn't make sense to hold on to that coin. And when I really think about it, and this is why I keep flip-flopping, get back and forth, because ideally, now the plan had been like, okay, it'd be out of 3000 series and maybe 4000 series cards. Ideally, I do actually want to get 4000 series cards. Reason being is I'd rather start getting cards now that are going to last me, number one, all of this year, so all of 2024, all of 2025, and potentially the bear market starting 2026, 2027, right? Getting more efficient cards, because that's one thing we definitely learned this bear market was efficient cards did make out the best, I guess you could say, right? Because a lot of those were profitable. They were break even. They weren't super profitable, but they were break even or better throughout most of that time, right? And realistically, I don't know if I necessarily have a lot of faith in that a lot of these 3000 series cards from 3 years ago, that most of them have probably been mined on this entire time, will last another 3 years on top of what it's already gone through, right? It's possible it does, right? It's possible these things last 10 years. But it's just considering the way some of y'all be treating these cards that I'll be buying from, who knows, right? So realistically, for me, thinking long-term wise, potentially would rather start buying potentially some of these only for that reason, and then also the benefit factor of if proof of useful work pops off, right? Ideally, it'd be smarter, not necessarily smarter, but it's going to be more ideal to have more powerful cards, right? Definitely cards with more VRAM, because for example, like these 8 gig cards, 6 gig cards are borderline becoming to the point where they're obsolete, even for gaming, right? They're getting to the point where almost too old for gaming. So proof of use for work is definitely an aspect, like for the, like, for example, the 4070 Ti Super and the now 16 gigs that it has makes it very appealing, right? Definitely going to do good for proof of use for work. It's good long-term wise. It's going to be efficient and resale value, right? I'm confident that these cards, like for example, the 4070 Ti Super, will probably still do relatively well for gaming 2-3 years down the road, right? In case I do want to sell, in case I do what I did like this past, I guess, end of bear market, you could say, when I built these gaming PCs, right? That was a good way to liquidate a lot of the cards, and that's what I did when I pivoted into those ASICs. I built gaming PCs and sold them that way, and it was extremely lucrative, right? That to me is definitely something I would definitely want to repeat. So because of those reasons, I'm not necessarily going to go out and buy an entire rig, right? I'm not going to go buy freaking 8 of these things, but maybe I'll buy 1 to 2, and then I'll make like its own little potential proof of use for work rig, right? Putting 2 of these with like a 59 or 7900X, and like in the meantime, mining with the 2, mining with the CPU, and then potentially being versatile where, okay, I'll be using it for mining, but if I want to pivot into potential proof of use for work, it's a more ideal setup, right? Kind of like pivoting for either direction. Shout out to Hashforce. He's one of the few that had mentioned that many months ago, and I loved that strategy. It was like, to me, that is the strategy that makes the most sense. That way you're taking advantage of both scenarios, right? You're able to maximize this, you're able to maximize that, and you're ready for both things no matter what happens, right? So preparing for the future, thinking of the future, thinking of what's coming ahead, right? So we'll see what happens with the pricing. We'll see if this pricing actually comes to fruition, or if the day before Nvidia decides to increase the prices, which is also possible, right? We saw the friggin' whole name change last year, like the weeks before, even though they had already made boxes and promo materials for the 4080. That last minute little change up. Who knows? I'll be very curious to see what the pricing of the legacy cards are. So meaning the older for the 4070 Ti's, right? Like, are they going to go down? Are we going to see them in like 600 range? Like, that would definitely be the target. Because out of the bunch, the most ideal is definitely the 4070 Ti. Both the older Ti and the Super. Okay, those are bang for the buck. As far as kind of getting the best of both worlds, that's definitely the best hybrid. The best overall card is a 4090, of course, right? But it's hard to get. It's an extremely high entry point, right? And it's expensive, bro. It's freaking $2,000. It's a rough pill to swallow. Again, if you're able to get them cheap, like I was able to get the open box one for $1,200, then it makes sense, obviously, right? But realistically, if I can get a 4070 Ti at $600, I can get 3 of them for $140.90, right? So it's kind of how you got to look at it. So spec wise, when we look at it, we got to just see where the prices are. To me, that's going to be the game changer. The 80s, I'm not necessarily looking at too much unless it goes down a good amount, right? Realistically, I don't see the regular 4080 going below 900. If the new one is going to be at 989, maybe we'll see some deals at $899 or some open box deals, something of that sort. The ones I'm looking at the most, not the 4070. I'm not really going to look at that one because, again, that one is going to coexist. So that one is not likely to receive much of a drop. Maybe $50, maybe $100 tops. Okay. The 4070 Super gets awfully close to the 4070 Ti. So that's one thing to look at. This is an excellent comparison chart. We can see it here. The overall memory bandwidth is identical. The memory clock is identical. The clocks are somewhat close. The boost clock is there. The base clock is definitely lower on the Super. The difference being the CUDA cores getting relatively close. When we compare the regular 4070, 4070 Super, the Super definitely is much more appealing. Okay, and the 4070 Super is pretty close to the 70 Ti. So the 70 Super at $600 is not bad, but if the 70 Ti goes down to $600, that to me is going to be the better deal, right? So it's going to be determined on there. And then the 4070 Ti Super is probably going to be the best out of the bunch, meaning the most efficient. Not necessarily the most powerful, but it's going to be the most efficient out of the bunch, just like the 4070 Ti was with the last bunch, right? So ideally, the ones I will be looking at will be these 3, the 4070 Ti Super, the 4070 Ti, and the 4070 Super. The 4070 Ti, we're going to be looking for deals, especially like open box deals. Ideally, shout out to Crewman. He did a video a few days ago talking about that, and I have very similar strategies, right? You want to like think about it like, okay, what's going to happen? People who bought one of these or got one as a gift, right, for Christmas, they got word like, oh man, freaking new one's going to come out 2 weeks later. They're still in that return period. What do you think is going to happen? People are going to most likely be returning these 4070 Ti's once they get their hands on the Super. Okay, so expect more like Amazon warehouse deals to pop up, used deals on eBay to pop up, and that's what I'll definitely be looking for. So while I necessarily get one of these at launch, maybe, but realistically, I'll be waiting for those open box deals. If they happen. Who knows if they happen, or who knows how good they'll be. Are they going to be better than the 650 we're getting currently? Maybe, maybe not, right? So definitely something I'll be looking at. We'll see what we end up doing. The other ones we're going to keep our eye out for are these Intel, the Battle Mage GPUs, right? Which are going to come out this year. We don't have exact timelines, right? But most likely maybe by the summer, we'll start hearing more. Hopefully springtime, or maybe even at CES, we'll get a clearer image. We'll get more details, right? That would be a nice little surprise if we get some details, or at least some better estimates as far as when they're going to come out, or better estimates on the specs, right? Right now, it's looking pretty good. Can come out. We'll see what happens. We'll see where the price point's at. We'll see what that memory bandwidth looks like. But it's definitely one we are going to be looking at, because this is one that if they were to kind of necessarily pivot and make cards for crypto mining, but if they were to make cards that would benefit us, right? So cards with a lot of memory bandwidth, and one that would be appealing to us, that would be very smart on their end to prepare for that, because it's, if it makes sense, then miners will 100% be buying that. Okay, so definitely one to keep our eye on there. As far as the overall pricing market, and this is kind of another reason why I've been eyeing GPUs more and more, is that prices are going up, right? We've been considering, it's not something where it's crazy like, oh man, it's out of range. Definitely not there yet either. But we can see these 5-10% increases like almost weekly, right? So like the 3070s on eBay now are now at like the $300 plus range, right? So like 300 plus shipping, whereas they were like 250, 240 not too long ago, right? So it's creeping up. Again, it's not out of range, or it's not something where it's going like through the roof, but they are going up, right? So they are going to continue to go up. They're continue to get rare. People are going to hold on to them. They're going to see their value increase. Something to consider there. 3060 Ti, same thing. They're at one point they were down to under 200, so they were between 180 to 200. Now currently they're in the not crazy expensive, right? In the 230 to 260 range, which isn't crazy high, but it's definitely increasing, right? And that's the main trend. So it's not, purpose of looking at these isn't necessarily like, oh, this is definitely the price you want to buy at, because realistically, if you buy them locally, they're going to be cheaper because it's going to be without the fees. But we will look for here is because we're tracking them, we're trying to see how much they go up, right? So this is kind of a trend indicator for us to see what's going on with the market, right? Because we want to keep an eye on, we want to see if we're seeing consistent increases, and that's something we want to pay attention to, right? And that's currently what we're seeing right now. Okay, so something to consider there. And it's the same story for all of them across the board, 3080 included. I think the one that has been the most drastic is the 3090. The 3090 is starting to near upon the $800 range, right? It was going from 5 to 600, 6 to 700, and now it's nearing 800, and it may potentially go up. Again, it's because of the VRAM in these things. So for compute power, for AI, for language learning models, etc., you want that VRAM. People are seeing it. It's more limited. The only other options are it's the 3090, 3090 Ti, and the 4090, right? This is the cheapest out of those options, and that's why this is most likely to continue. Okay, is it gonna something that's gonna go crazy? Who knows, right? But it's definitely been a good buy for you guys who picked up any of them in the $500 range or cheaper, because they are going up. They're continuing to go up, and it's most likely going to continue. Okay, something to look at there. Even the AMD cards, which I've been tracking more, because now I definitely do eventually want to get a rig of AMD cards. It's one that I have been staying away from, but because of the rise of these Kapow algorithm cards, these memory intensive algorithms that are going to be prominent come the bull market, it's definitely more appealing, and a lot of these have gone up a good amount, right? 6600 XTs just a few months ago were $150 all day. Now they're 200 plus shipping, right? 6700 XT, same thing. They're continuing to go up. They're nearing that $300 range. Okay, 6800 XTs were like 320 to 340. Now they're 400 plus. Okay, so it's again another one that's continuing to go up. Okay, we're gonna continue to follow it. We'll see what happens with the prices, because a lot of it's going to be dictated by the miners. Let's say we have a big dump, we have a big fallout, and it stretches for a few months. We want to see where these price trends are. Are they still on that same rate? Do they go down a bit? It's hard to say now, right? When this happened last year, there was still quite a ways for, the bull market to happen. Now we're at that point where it's going to start this year. So even if we do have a dump, even let's say February, March, April, or let's say April, May, June, any of those months, we do have a significant drop. Even if it's over the span of months, at the end of the day, we still know that most likely, not guaranteed, but we know that it's going to start increasing, right? So we may not see another drop. The lows for GPU mining prices or GPU mining equipment, such as GPUs and the accessories, the lows may be behind us already, right? And that's something you definitely got to consider. You definitely got to think about. Okay, so it's definitely why I've been researching so hard, and that's where my focus has been, as just different things, right? And realistically, thought-wise, it makes most sense for me to go to 4000 series cards for that reason, for longevity, to have cards with warranty, because it is a nice peace of mind to know that I do have like a good 2 years warranty, because cards do randomly go out, right? The ones I've had the most go out are MSIs. Luckily, their RMA process was fairly simple. I just had to pay the shipping, and they got it done, right? But now all my cards, they're all over 3 years old and have been mined to hell and back, essentially. And they're still doing their thing. Hopefully, maybe I'll get another 3 years. Maybe I don't, right? At this point, they have way made more than what I ever paid for them. So even if they were all to crap out sometime this year, it's all good, right? But realistically, just thinking ahead, thinking for the future, I would like to get 4,000 series cards, right? So I say would like to get because then I start crunching the numbers and man, an 8-card rig would be what? How much? When I can get this ASIC, which is going to make this much revenue for how much? And that's where it gets hard, and that's why I keep kind of flip-flopping, right? It's just, it's hard, bros. It's hard. It's hard deciding, but realistically, that kind of is the game plan for me, though, right? So hopefully that's why I'm kind of excited for this month to kind of see where those prices lay, where they end up at, and what kind of deals we find, if any at all. We may not even get any, and they may just sell out and the prices go increase, right? Just like we saw with the 4090 initially, right? That thing sold out. People were paying crazy prices, even right off the forefront. Right? Eventually they did get stock and it did level out. So like in the springtime when I got it, it's because they were easy to get. Even returns, open box items were easy to get. We'll see if it happens again this time, right? So the other big trend we want to talk about is proof of useful work, which Flux did release their Flux Core Alpha. So it is their system. So again, it is just like the title says, it is an alpha. We're not currently earning from it. It is there for you to try out, for you to benchmark. That's been the biggest thing with it, is that if it's one you definitely want to do, you can configure different rigs and see what makes more sense, right? You can get your score. You can see what's going to be more ideal. Realistically, right now, it looks like it's going to be very GPU-centric. It'll be based mainly on the GPUs you have on it. But it is pretty cool to mess around with. But, again, we're waiting for that actual release so we can really be interested in it. Or once we get closer, even once we get like, okay, we're going to go live in 2 months. Then that's when I'll be more interested. Right now, currently, not very appealing. As I get more hardware though, right, because I will be looking, like I mentioned, for those 4000 series GPUs, I will be looking at Ryzen 7000 series CPUs, right? So as I get some of those systems going, as I find deals, maybe I'll configure a rig for it just to kind of benchmark and play around with it, right? So that's definitely one to follow. Another one is Dynex. Their marketplace did just go live, right? So pretty big news for them. And they've been accelerating. That's kind of another reason that I think Flux has been kind of a little bit stagnant, just because Dynex came way later in the game and seems to be way more accelerated, right? And we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. Pretty cool though. Their dashboard and everything set up is pretty cool. We're going to see how it progresses and we're going to follow it, right? Because it does seem like this will be a lucrative thing for us. How lucrative though, we don't necessarily know. Will it be super lucrative? We'll see what kinds of things come up. But we know that there is interest, not just from these guys, but also on larger scales, right? A lot of people talk about these big farms and everything, and like, oh, you know, freaking hash rate's going to go through the roof once profitability goes up because we have, you know, 100,000 cards that are just waiting idle. Not necessarily in the same mindset, just because a lot of them have already pivoted. A lot of the big farms, the best example that's been like paving the way is with Hive, right? They've been very opening about it. They do it, talk extensively about it on their quarterly updates. And we can see, you know, they have numbers listed. The company's GPU fleet includes 4,000 Nvidia A40s, 400 plus RTX A6000s, 12,000 A5000s, 20,000 A4000s. And they're currently doing it for like machine learning. Okay, for them, they have openly talked about it, how it's much more profitable for them to pivot in that direction versus mining, and that's where they have gone. So where do you think a lot of these other big farms are doing? They're consulting with Hive, they're finding it out, and they're doing this also. So I honestly don't think a lot of these are going to return to mining, right? For them, they have figured out a little niche, and they're going for it, right? And here they kind of talk about it as Hive Digital Technology subsidiary Hive Performance Computing is currently building Hive Cloud, an enterprise-grade GPU cloud service. And this is kind of where things are pivoting towards. Hive Cloud will offer enterprise-grade cloud services for companies that may wish to utilize training or inference on large language models, but require privacy and ownership of their data. Okay, and this is a big thing that's kind of you're not necessarily going to get with these open marketplaces, right? Realistically, I think a lot of these big companies who are interested in compute power are going to look for more something like this. This is going to be more ideal for them, especially as far as building partnerships. Like a lot of people have mentioned this with Dynex, for example, with their team not being doxxed, that it may be difficult, or not maybe, it will be difficult for them to get partnerships with these, like, you know, Fortune 500 companies because of that, until they dox themselves, which I'm sure they will eventually once everything is out in the open, right? So different things to look at, but a lot of this stuff is going to come out this year. It's going to affect us this year. Hopefully Flux Core does come out this year. It's going to be exciting times, guys. A lot of stuff coming up again. I think from here on out, it's definitely, hopefully, should be profitable. Again, break even or better is the goal, which it was pretty much the majority of last year. We all, for those of you who participated, we got those massive gains, and it was definitely worth it, right? So if you were kind of on the sidelines, learn your lesson, get in the game. That was the key thing from last year. Get in the game, be forward thinking, look at the coins you want to look at the yield, and hop on it. Because again, at the end of the day, guys, this right now is still going to be the most profitable time to mine. Reason being is that you're going to accrue the most amount of coins, hodl those coins, not financial advice, but what we've seen last year, that was definitely the play, is mine the coins, hodl the coins, wait for price appreciation. Okay? So just wanted to give you guys that update. Let me know what you guys are doing. Did you guys get in last year? Did you guys get good gains last year? Did you guys kind of miss out? You're learning your lesson. You're jumping in now. What are you doing hardware-wise, right? Are you going to get any 4000 series, or is that just too expensive? Let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys are doing, what you guys are thinking. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.